Oh, okay, all right, we'll wait on Mr. Menlo. Of 2024. Exciting. We're going to have a great year. January 2nd, it's 10 o'clock, and I've asked Alex if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dear, kind, and gracious Heavenly Father, we are grateful that we can come before Thee this beautiful morning. We have gratitude in our hearts for the blessings that Thou hast bestowed upon us. We're grateful for this new year that gives us an opportunity to serve Thee and strive to obey Thy will and do those things that are pleasing in Thy sight. We're grateful for the Board of Supervisors that willingly serve Thee in their capacities of helping and blessing the lives of others. We are grateful for this opportunity that the board has to meet this morning to go through the agenda, and we pray for their wisdom and their blessings. Heavenly Father, we pray for the constituents of Gila County, that those that are suffering through health or other and have other needs, that they may be blessed this day, and that we may be compassionate on those that have needs and look for ways to serve, or look for ways to bless and help them, those that are in pain in any way, that they might be blessed. We're grateful again for this day and pray Thy blessings upon us. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Oh, it's warmer up here. Well, I trust everyone had a good holiday season and travels if you traveled, good family time, good food, and now we're back to work, and I'm excited about that. Marin, are you on my schedule first?
Oh, you know what? I thought I was and I'm not. Excuse me.
So that's okay. Okay, so the first item here today is 2A. We'll get you up here, Marin, don't worry. We'll get you up here. 2A. We're going to have a presentation today on update on legislative session activities from the Policy Development Group. Todd and Andy with us. Good to see you guys.
Great. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Chairman, supervisors. As you mentioned, my name is Todd Bowman with Policy Development Group. Andy Jacobs, my colleague, is here with me today, and we want to give you a recap of what happened last legislative session, and then a look forward to the next legislative session. Last legislative session, kind of the saying in the political world is, if you've seen one session, you've seen one session. And last session was actually the longest session ever in Arizona history. So it extended well into the summer for a few different reasons, but ultimately wrapped up in July. So with all bills every year, they become effective and go into place 90 days after we sine die or get out of session. Typically, depends on when we get out, but typically that's sometime in the summer, early fall. This year, those bills went into effect end of October. So when you have bills going into effect October 31st, they have only been in effect for a few months, really. So a lot of times when bills go into effect, you see what works, what doesn't, you come back, you change them in the next session. But we really haven't had a lot of time to see what works and what doesn't with some of the bills that are passed. So that will impact this coming session. So on your behalf, we've engaged with different the supervisors and staff not only with CSA, but ACO as well, working on some of the broader issues that are important to Gila County. We've engaged with the governor's staff. Governor Hobbs, this was her first year in session, so she won the election last November, and then was quickly, about a month later, produced her proposed executive budget, and then through this legislative session. As we'll touch on in a second, it was a tumultuous session between the legislature and the governor's office. She had a record number of vetoes that she chose to veto, and so with the typical number of bills that were introduced, as there's normally a couple thousand bills that are introduced every year. We worked very closely last year on your behalf with the Department of Veteran Services. As we'll also touch on in a second, there was a significant piece of legislation that Representative Marshall sponsored, was able to pass and ultimately sign into law through the budget. We worked with Department of Veteran Services to make sure that that legislation looked proper in a form that Department of Veteran Services felt comfortable with, and that's important because that helped ultimately get it across the finish line. So I do want to thank the Department of Veteran Services for reaching out. We've built a great relationship. They've been up to Young and worked with us on that. Continue to work with the Department of Forestry and ADOT as well, and then other stakeholders such as SRP, particularly on the forestry issue. Also, I do want to mention and just thank the legislators that you all have here. You all have some great legislators. We've worked very closely with them, and even just recently, with Representative Cook, he worked with helping us with a state land issue, and as I mentioned, Representative Marshall sponsored that key piece of legislation for us last year. Last year, the budget, it was a $17.8 billion budget. It was the largest budget we've had in state's history. We had a budget that was a bipartisan budget. Ultimately, with the Republican legislature, that's as close as you can get. It's 16-14 and 31-29 in the House, one vote majority for the GOP, and then a Democrat governor. There was some question about what's this budget going to look like? Is it going to take forever? Well, they actually got the budget done fairly quickly for what folks were anticipating, and they got it done in May, but there were a few other issues that, particularly Prop 400, which was a tax issue for Maricopa County, a big property or a sales tax extension for transportation. That's what stretched session on. There was also a record number of vetoes by the governor, and she indicated that she will continue to veto legislation this year if it's not something that meets her standards. There was significant infrastructure spending. Of the $17.8 billion, there was a lot of one-time money. Typically with one-time money, you want to spend that on a capital project, transportation projects, or other capital funding. That one-time money is gone, as is the ongoing money. We'll touch on that here in a second as well. But we are not heading into this session looking at a surplus. Rather, we're looking at a deficit. But a couple other things that I just want to mention too, from a tax policy standpoint, tax cuts remain in place. The rental tax was eliminated. The governor signed that into law. On the education front, a hot topic is ESAs, which is something that continue to remain in place. And then Prop 400 was the transportation tax, which, when it was passed, it will be put on the ballot next November. So the Maricopa County voters will be voting on that sales tax extension to continue the funding for roads in Arizona and other transportation projects. Finally, I would just mention that the Senate, who has the responsibility of confirming the governor's nominations to head up her agencies, they held some very contentious, I would say, hearings, and several of them didn't pass committee. Some of them that did pass committee did not ultimately get a full vote by the Senate, and so that's been a point of ongoing contention between the governor and the Senate. And I think we'll see that continue into this next session. For specifically the bill that Representative Marshall ran last year, and I'm very grateful for him taking the leadership on this. It was $3 million to Gila County for the Pleasant Valley Veterans Retreat. That's something that I know is very important to Gila County. There were a couple events that were held this last year, ribbon cutting to start that process. I know we've been working, Andy and I have been working with your staff to make sure that that money, you get that money and you're able to spend that money, working with Department of Veteran Services on that as well. Representative Marshall was up there as well to celebrate, working through the state JOC to get that funded, and then continuing to work with the federal folks on that. One of the things I want to mention is that because we are headed into a deficit, Andy and I are keeping a close eye on making sure that that money that was appropriated in the budget last year gets to Gila County. Whenever you have a deficit, you've got to figure out a way to solve that deficit, and the answer is yet to be determined at the state level. And so we want to make sure that the money that was appropriated, and this is not specifically just for Gila County, but everybody who got money last year is trying to figure out, to make sure that that money actually gets there and is appropriated, because how the deficit is filled, everybody wants to make sure it's not with their money. So that's something that we're keeping a close eye on your behalf. And we'll continue to do and continue to stay in contact with your staff on that as well. Just a couple pictures from the event. It was a great event up in Young, and I think one of the things that Andy and I always say is that whenever we ask for money from the state capital, it's always appropriate to follow up and show them what happened with that money. And so it was good to have Representative Marshall out to the facility to see it, and then I would hope and anticipate that once those buildings do get built, we would have them make the trip out to Young again to celebrate with that, continue to promote that. It's something that I would say is a point of pride and is a bipartisan point of pride too. And we're supporting our veterans, that crosses political boundaries and hopefully geographical boundaries too, to not only serve Gila County, but this is important for the entire state. Looking forward to 2024, the budget deficit, as I mentioned, stands at about 331 million budget deficit for FY24. That's this current year that we're in, the budget that we just put together. It's something that it changes as the revenue projections come out. We'll see how much everybody spent on Christmas presents this year, and what the sales tax looks like. Income tax is another one that has impacted the state's budget, but those numbers actually were a little higher. The deficit was a little higher before the November numbers came out. So we'll take a look and we'll see what the latest numbers are. And as the legislature puts together their budget, just kind of the time frame of it is we start next Monday. Second Monday in January is when the session starts. They typically have committees for about 2 to 3 months, and then at April is typically when they turn, once committees are done, to what the budget's going to look like. So what happens, what the revenue numbers come in the next 3 months will be interesting to see, and that will impact what this next budget looks like. But I would anticipate there will not be a ton of new spending. There will be cuts and there will be deferrals. That's one of the ways that typically these are dealt with. If you have a big capital investment that you were planning on making as a state, but you have to defer that in order to save hundreds of millions of dollars, that's a possibility that they could look at as well. Pleasant Valley Veterans Retreat will continue to work on that. Forest health implementation is something that is not a one-time thing. It's a continual thing for the state, particularly Gila County. Road opportunities as well. That's something that the governor and the legislature, if there has been some points of agreement on, they continue to believe that roads and infrastructure are important. And then a state land issue. I know we've worked with your staff to try and figure out how we can better work with state land from a Gila County perspective, what state lands are in Gila County that we might be able to work with them on to have a highest and best use here in Gila County to meet the needs of Gila County. Blight issue, I know that's something that we've had a conversation about for a while now, and how we work to resolve that issue. That's something that CSA has recent conversations with CSA on. and we want to continue to work with CSA, whether that be a legislative issue or there's other ways to approach this. It's something that it's not just a Gila County issue, frankly. There's other counties that deal with this issue. So this is something that we either deal with now or we figure out a way to deal with, because this issue is not going away, and it's not just a Gila County issue, it's a statewide issue. So we need to work with our legislators on that as well. There is the rural hospital legislation. Representative Cook ran a bill last year that didn't quite make it across the finish line. That would allow rural hospitals to have more flexibility for certain procedures. There's challenges with getting certain staff to be able to staff certain procedures in rural hospitals, and we want to make sure that there's flexibility if that's necessary. So we're going to continue to work with him on that issue. And then finally, as is always the case, every year there's thousands of bills introduced. Andy and I's job these next couple weeks, I think we enjoy the holidays because we know what's coming. I've talked to legislative council where they write all the bills, and this was probably 3 weeks ago. There were about 800 bills that were already being worked on, and a lot of those are holdovers from last year, ones that are being run back again from last year that didn't make it across the finish line, but there'll be new ideas as well. So we will spend the next 2-3 weeks as all the new bills are introduced, poring over them, making sure that they don't negatively impact you, and identifying the ones that do help you. And we'll work with your staff on that to make sure that we read through those and make sure we deal with those appropriately. So with that, I know Andy's here as well, but happy to answer any questions that you might have, or any comments or any other direction or feedback too on your behalf. Lastly, I would just say beyond the bills, we always look for opportunities. If there's opportunities to support your priorities, it's been a privilege to represent you all the last few years. I think we've gotten a good understanding of what's important to you. I mean, just think back particularly with some of the fire mitigation that we've been able to secure some funding for. If there's opportunities, we want to make sure we push for that. This is a year where, frankly, there's not going to be a lot of money out there, but that doesn't mean that we can't look for those opportunities when they arise. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Todd. Good job. Supervisor Humphrey.
Yeah, I have no questions. Just thank you for helping us through a lot of the rough spots and helping us with different funding issues. And like I say, to continue to work on the blight and things like that, I appreciate it very much. And so I look forward to this year and see where it goes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Todd and Andy, thank you both for what you've done, and I'm sure it's going to be another busy year. But I had a question for you on water. Representative Griffin's push on the water and all that. Have you heard anything new on anything that's going on there?
So water is always always an issue every single year. I think this year will be no different, frankly. She's not shied away from that issue, and she'll continue to work on it.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't specifically talked with her yet this year on what she's looking at pushing, but that's something that I know I've chatted with her a couple weeks ago on a different issue, but I'd be happy to get with you if there's a specific aspect of it from Gila County's perspective.
Okay. Yeah, and as far as, us as a board, we haven't really discussed it, so I won't go any deeper than that. But yeah, that keeps coming up, and, the governor's got her ideas on water appropriations and all that as well. So I'm not real sure where that's going to end up, but that's something that I want to keep an eye on for sure, especially for our rural county. But thank you so much for everything you guys have done, and that was a really good push on that Veteran Center, and Representative Marshall did an outstanding job on it. So if you would, please relay that to him when you see him next.
I will.
I tell him all the time, but
no, I will definitely do that. And on the waterfront, I know there had been some conversations in the off session about the 100-year water supply, and should that 100-year water supply, should that number be changed? I think think there was some pushback on changing that, and I think that would run into some significant pushback, but that doesn't mean that the conversation won't happen. A lot of times these bills are introduced to say, hey, let's have the conversation to see, to get the subject out there so we can discuss it, but I would anticipate there'd be significant pushback on that.
I would imagine, so,
Yeah.
thank you.
And I will relay that to Representative Marshall. I mean, it's, Andy and I, we go down there, we have conversations, but ultimately it's your members and the members that vote on the bills and come up with their priorities. So Representative Marshall, he was a passionate advocate for it, frankly. I mean, I know you were down there and you were able to see him in committee, and he spoke very eloquently to it and was able to communicate, personally why it was important to him, but important to the county as well. So you all are blessed with some good representatives.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you, Todd and Andy. Really great job. We really appreciate you. I actually wrote down also rural groundwater. So I know there's a lot going on right there, and what the governor wants, what is passable. The problem I see is you can't make one size fits all for every county. So we're not even close to being there yet for Gila County. So I'm going to be continuing talking to other people on that. I know a gentleman that's actually on that water council, and he's a rancher, and I want to talk to him about what's going on, and so get more informed. And the $3 million to Pleasant Valley was just amazingly good. I don't see us probably not getting that money. In fact, I heard that we already had about half of it, and the other half's coming. Okay, so that's great, but we're probably not going to count on another dose of that this year, is what you're kind of telling us. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult year all around.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that
Well,
we'll see how the numbers
everything has challenges, so we'll work our way. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, yes, Supervisor.
One more thing is on roads and infrastructure. Is there anything coming down the pipes on any kind of grant money from the state or through the state on any kind of road improvements or construction or anything like that for rural areas that you know of?
I have not heard specifically. I think right now what I've heard is that some of the monies that were the one-time funds that were appropriated last year, I think those are the funds that are being, obviously they were higher dollar amounts because they were one-time funds. I think those are the ones that folks are looking at to say, are these going to be, is there the potential for them to be paused or pulled back or stopped? So I think it's going the other way, at least as of right now, depending on what the revenues look like. I think that's why folks kind of have their antennas up.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Anything else from anybody? Okay, great. Have a good new year. Okay, item 2B, presentation of Gila County General Fund financial data as it compares to the fiscal year 2024 Gila County budget and fiscal years 23, 22, 21, and 20 year-to-date performance. Maren, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Supervisor Klein. Good morning, Supervisor Humphrey. Sorry I jumped the gun earlier. We're happy to be back at work, and apparently that shows.
You're just zealous. We like that.
And as Chairman said, we did get half of the $3 million already for the Pleasant Valley Veterans Retreat. We hadn't received that when we put together this update, but we do have that now. The information that we're showing here is just where we are relative to the last 4 years. At the end of November, we were at 36% of our annual budget compared to a 5-month target of 42%. And that is for your revenues, and the difference is less than $3,900 year to year. Expenditures at the end of November were at 40.3% of the budget compared to a 42% year-to-date target. Those expenditures are $2 million higher than the prior year. Most of that is salaries and employee-related expenses, followed by bond interest and fees, and the bond interest and fees variance is due to timing in the year before that. Other than that, your differences are in utilities and miscellaneous, and we'd be happy to get you more specific detail if you'd like it, and we expect to have a December update for you probably the first week of February after everything is finalized.
Thank you, Maren. Any comments or questions, Supervisor Humphrey?
No comments or questions, thank you.
Supervisor Klein?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maren, I guess I could be brain dead after all that time off, but at the end of November, we're 36% of the annual budget on our general fund revenues. But why was that again? Do you know?
It's, compared to the prior year, it's a $3,800 difference. I mean,
Okay,
I can
so-
dig into that if you'd like, but.
No, that's good. That's good. Thank you, Maren. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome. You're welcome. We'll expect, we see at the end of December so far that we're creeping closer to that 50% mark.
Okay.
So but there's probably another week worth of revenue to post, and we were at 44% when I ran this report last Friday. So we're getting there.
We're gaining. Okay, thank you, Maren.
You're welcome. You'll expect to see us get probably to the 80% point in April when that second half of property taxes come in, because that's really what drives the ratio right now.
Okay.
Right, okay. Thanks, Maren.
You're welcome.
I'm pretty simple about finances. It's like it's in black ink or red ink. So
There
just
you
keep
go.
the black ink coming and we're good. So
Okay.
thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to regular agenda items. 3A, I will call for a motion to adjourn as the Gila County Board of Supervisors and convene as the Board of Directors of the Gila County Flood Control District.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to do that. Let's, what do I say? Say aye.
Yeah, all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I forgot what to do. Okay, and then we have Dard with this information, discussion, action to authorize the publication of a notice of a proposed amendment to the Gila County Floodplain Management Ordinance and set a public hearing date for February 20th, 2024. Dard.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm glad to be here and give you a little bit of background on this. This change was initiated by what they call a community assistance visit from the Arizona Department of Water Resources, who is acting as an agent for FEMA for the flood insurance program. And there were some suggestions they came up with and some things that once we got looking at it, we noticed that we should make these a little bit clearer, less ambiguous in the ordinance, and try to make things as easy as possible for our citizens to comply with while still meeting the federal guidelines and regulations. So in the Code of Federal Regulations, there are FEMA's rules, and they have certain definitions and rules. Then FEMA also has certain guidelines to tell us what their interpretation of the regulations are. And we try to match that as closely as possible and provide at least the minimum level of flood protection for our residents while not making it too burdensome by adding a lot to it. Now, they're always free to protect to a higher standard when they build it, but we don't want to make it hard on those who are having difficulty anyways trying to get a home. So you have this revision summary, and you also have the proposed ordinance, and that will be published if you guys approve the publishing of that for public review and comment. But I'd just like to touch on a few things that are that have changed, and I'm not going to touch on everything because there are a lot of details. I know the agenda's long, so I'm going to respect that. There is a new definition of agricultural structure with some allowable ways to flood-proof that, which are actually a little more lenient and a little more options than what we had before. Definitions for breakaway fence, breakaway walls, which are designed to break away if floods come and still have the support, above them. The flood proofing, there's a revised definition that clarifies that. Mainly the dry flood proofing, where you provide a strong structural wall or something that keeps the water out. And wet flood proofing, where you provide flood vents that allow the water to come in and equalize the water pressure so the structure is not compromised by forces on the wall. Those are the two major types in a nutshell. So that's clarified a little bit in the ordinance. There's a definition on shed that's been added. And some other things that are just clarifications or bringing into compliance with the Code of Federal Regulations. And in there's an option or a modification which would expand the jurisdiction of the ordinance to include regulation of floodplains which have been identified by FEMA in their new studies that we talked about a while back. And so that we can use the best available information in the interim until these maps are officially adopted and made part of the official flood maps. And these are based on better engineering than what we have that delineates the floodplain. Some of it was pretty rough, approximate, and now we have better information. We'd like to use that to protect our citizens, and that goes both ways. Both those who are, well, it's those who might be in areas that were not currently on the maps, and for those who are currently on the maps who would not be with the new study, we still have to issue a permit, but we'll use the information from the new study, which will basically say there aren't any requirements because you're out of the floodplain. We just still have to do the paperwork. And there's a section that talks about ways to correct violations, and FEMA has some guidance on that, which we're implementing. There are several methodologies, and we'll go through all that. One of them is that that would affect you is the changes being proposed, which would not allow the floodplain board to grant a variance to a violation. Variances are, according to FEMA, supposed to be for unusual situations that deserve a special treatment, and not just because they blew off the rules and want a variance. So that's one change that's being proposed. There's a proposed change that would agree with the federal regulations, which would allow like air conditioning compressors, generators, that kind of equipment that serves a building. Now they need to be elevated above the flood elevation by a foot, and we're proposing allowing it to be designed to prevent water from entering or accumulating within the components during conditions of flooding, which is the federal wording. So there are situations where people are unaware that their AC contractor or something has not gotten permits, and now they're stuck with a problem. This would allow them some options to maybe retrofit a little more easily. And then there's a section to allow using the water surface elevation in new FEMA studies in Zone A's, where there's no elevation on the flood maps. And that's been encouraged by FEMA, but we wanted to put that in the ordinance to make it official and transparent to everybody. That's what we're doing. And there's some new FEMA guidelines which have come out, I think since the, well, no, they're not since the last ordinance, but we want to implement them. They're guidelines for, in floodways, which are always problematic, where the regulations state that we need to have engineering to prove that there is no rise in the water level by what somebody wants to build. And common sense tells us that some things in the middle of a floodway are so minor that they will not really have an impact. And this allows, the guidance allows us to basically not require that engineering for that purpose. These are things such as flag poles, electric meter pedestals for manufactured homes, breakaway fences, open carports with minimal support structure, and things like that. So those are believed to be positive and helpful to our residents. And those are the major changes that we're proposing in this ordinance.
Thank you, Dart. Any comments, Supervisor Humphrey?
Yeah, one, I think change is good. This is a long time coming because a lot of people have done their own engineering to prove that the map was incorrect prior. And so when you mentioned the paperwork, so now once this is out, are they still gonna have to do their engineering paperwork for building permits and stuff, or will we be able to just go by the new elevation set?
We will, okay, for the, I understand the question. You're asking whether, once these new flood maps are published for Zone A's, not the Zone AEs with elevation, because by FEMA's regulations, we have to use the effective one on that, okay? And those are being revised also. But when this goes into effect, some of the ones that we have for the areas which are mapped as floodplains but don't have elevations, we'll be able to use those, that information. The permit paperwork will still be there, but some of the requirements will be eased a lot. Same as with these changes for development in floodway for minor things. They'll still require a permit so that we know what's going on, but the requirements will be somewhat less.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Well, yeah, for the most part. And then also too, anytime you change those maps, a lot of people's homeowners insurance is set by these maps. And so with these maps changing, will that help people or hurt people in their homeowners insurance depending on the change of the maps?
It could. Now this ordinance doesn't change the maps. FEMA is on a parallel track revising the maps. And when those become effective, that's what the insurance will be based on.
Okay, and
we don't have anything to do with the insurance.
I understand that. So when will these maps be finalized, do you think?
We don't have an exact date. They're telling us that probably mid-2025 we'll have preliminary data, and then they have a required review and comment period where people can, object if they want or send in comments, and they'll look at that. Then after that's done, and they haven't given us a schedule, but after that's done, they will start creating the maps. So they go through the process, draw up the maps, and then when the maps are finalized, they'll have another review and comment period, then they'll be adopted,
So we're looking at probably a couple years?
at least.
Okay. Because now that we've stirred this up and muddied the water, I get a lot of questions, building permits and homeowners insurance. And so that was my reason for the questions to you,
Yeah.
is, then as I answer questions, it's gonna be a few years down the road before you're able to benefit or be harmed from these new maps.
Yes, but once the ordinance becomes effective, some of these minor provisions to help people along, they will become effective.
Right, understand that. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Supervisor Klein?
Art? You still got?
My turn.
Go.
Sorry.
I don't blame you.
You almost got away.
Art, it's okay. So floodplain is a real huge issue for Gila County. And there's a lot to it. And a lot of it is based on those maps. That's kind of the issues where we're at right now. Really, almost everything is what is mapped now isn't mapped correctly. And so when I look at you're gonna have to pardon me a little bit because I did not jump into this and look at it real close. Parts of this I can understand where you're coming from. Other parts I can't. And I think for me to jump into an ordinance, to sign an ordinance that I'm not really fully familiar with, I'm not gonna be ready to do that. And so, especially where it pertains to floodplains, because I'm no different than Supervisor Humphrey. I get a lot of questions on floodplains. And there's a lot of things that has to do with the floodplain, as he stated, that can hurt or help people. And so I see some differences in definitions and some things like that. But for one, I feel like this is a subject that we really need to be able to sit down and really dwell into, at least on my account, to where I understand it more fully than right now. So I don't really have anything in specific, Dard. I just want to thank you for what you put together. But I'm not going to push to pass this right now. I'm not going to do it. I'd like to see us have a work session on it that we can dive into and have some really good discussions when we have the time, because we don't have the time today. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dard. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn as the Board of Directors of the Gila County Flood Control
Will
District.
we vote on it first?
Oh, okay, sure. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to take action or approve or something, whatever you want to make a motion about.
Mr. Chair, I move to authorize the publication of a notice of the proposed amendment to the Gila County floodplain maintenance ordinance and set a public hearing date for February 20th, 2024.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to proceed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. And I presume we can always make adjustments to it as needed. Okay, Maren, you're back up. Item 3B, information.
Now we need.
Oh, I'm sorry. Now I need a motion to adjourn as the Board of Directors of the Gila County Flood Control District and reconvene as the Board of Supervisors.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second that.
Okay, with that, all those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. Thank you. And item 3B, information, discussion, action to approve intergovernmental agreement number 10042-023 with the town of Miami to provide funding for the Copper Mountain Transit System in the amount of $73,000 for the period July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Supervisor Klein, Supervisor Humphrey. I fully expected Katie from the town of Miami to be here today to present to you their ridership summary for the past year. Seeing as she's not here, it's up to you whether you want to approve this as is, or if you'd like to table it until they are able to be here to present.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Any questions, Supervisor Humphrey?
Yeah, I would like to see the town of Miami here because they were after me pretty hard why they didn't get their funding, this, that, and the other. And it's like, well, usually you come and present to us what's been going on with the money that we gave you last year. And it's in my district, and I don't want to ruffle too many feathers, but I think it would be important for them to come and let us know where our $73,000 went and where our new $73,000 is going to go.
Supervisor Klein?
This 70-some odd thousand is something we've given them now for what, 7 years I've been in here? I mean, it's just been a routine deal. I can't imagine that it's got any less. I don't totally disagree with Supervisor Humphrey. It'd be nice to have him here to present, but I also know how important that transit system is to people. And so I'm leave it up to your call, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
I'll entertain a motion then to either approve, disapprove, or I'm sorry, you have something?
Chairman, yes, members of the board. So this authority is arising under ARS 11-254, which the board does need to make a determination that it's for the benefit of the public. So if you feel that you're in a position where you can make that determination without the presentation, you can go ahead and proceed. But if you're in the position where you need more information, I would recommend holding off.
Okay, thank you. So I'll entertain a motion to either approve, disapprove, or table.
Supervisor Humphrey, it's your district. I think I'd leave it to you.
Okay, I move to table this until we can have someone from the town of Miami give us a presentation on the transportation system that we're helping fund.
Okay, we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, motion and a second. All those in favor of tabling item 3B, say aye.
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 Okay, we'll wait for more information. Thank you, Maren.
Okay.
Item 3C, information and discussion action to adopt a revised policy number BOS-FIN-116, the Public Safety Personnel Retirement System funding to reflect update actuarial valuation as of June 30th, 2023.
So I believe this is my final item today. So ARS 38-86301 requires that we have an annual update to our PSPRS funding policy. We have adopted this policy annually since June 18th of 2019 when we first adopted it. And we did in the past issue a revenue bond, a pledged revenue bond that we used to fund 100% of our PSPRS debt so that we are making our ongoing payroll contributions, but we do not have an ongoing normal contribution as the policy requires. So the update to today's policy indicates the current asset balance in each of the three funds, the Sheriff's Office, Adult Detention, and Dispatchers. It indicates their assets, accrued liability, any unfunded liability, and the funded ratio. All three funds are funded at more than 100% at this time. Specifically, the Sheriff's Office funded ratio is 103.38%. Adult Detention funding ratio is 104.3%, and Dispatch is 112.24%. Today's policy update indicates that there is no goal to achieve. We do not need to make any normal contributions, and we will continue to maintain, to the greatest extent possible, the goal of 100% fully funded. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Supervisor Humphrey.
I have no questions, and I think that's great that we're way ahead of that game.
Supervisor Klein.
Yeah, I don't either, Mayor, and I'm just really, really happy we did what we did a few years ago, so thank you.
Yeah, very beneficial. So thank you, Maren, and with that, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt revised policy number BOS FIN-116, Public Safety Personnel Retirement System Funding.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Maren.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Item 3D, information discussion action to approve economic development agreement number 112123 between Gila County and the Globe Miami Gun Club Incorporated in the amount of $3,662 to fund the improvements to the gun range required by Arizona police officer standards and training in order to establish the Eastern Arizona College/Gila Pueblo Law Enforcement Training Academy, which the board has determined to be for the benefit of the public. Supervisor Humphrey.
Yeah, where this is since I've been here, we've been trying to do cadet training because a lot of the people that we send to other areas to get trained, you know, it's hard to get them back. Also, to locally, it would help, in my opinion, to have officers trained here locally. It would help us with a lot of that. And so in order to do that, we needed to do some improvements to the gun range. And so earlier in one of the meetings, it was like $30,000, and I came up with 10,000. The city of Globe came up with 10,000, and FMI came up with 10,000, which was a $30,000, which you gentlemen helped me approve. Well, then, as it was inspected by the NRA, from my understanding, is there need to be some improvements to the range over and above what that 30,000 included, which was right at $7,000 more money they needed for the improvements. And so I sat down and worked with the chief of police of Globe, and we decided that we would split this additional $7,000 in order to make this happen and be then when NRA could approve that for us to do the training at the Globe Gun Range. And so it's not only for the cadet training, but you know, we're doing a 4-H deal with people shooting and things, and so the improvements to the range are going to go far beyond just being able to help cadet training. But so anyway, that's what this is for, and it is out of my constituent funds, and I would like us to go forward with that, and so being that it is for the benefit of the public and has to come before the board, that's what I have. And if you have a question, we have Lee Kennard here, who has been ringleader of this for 2 years trying to get it rolling. I have a letter from the college as well that is going to help with the classes. And so if you have any questions, that's my presentation.
Thank you, Supervisor. Does either one of you or both of you wish to speak at this time? Yeah, please. Tell us who you are.
Hello, my name is Lee Kennard. I'm the Academy Director or Coordinator for the Gila Pueblo College, UAC. I was trying to retire and I wasn't able to do that. I was brought into this position.
We appreciate that very much.
So I want to kind of go over what Supervisor Humphrey said. I attended this police academy back in '86, '87. And this is when Chief Walters approached me. He said that most of us that had attended this local academy tended to stay with local agencies. And it was a high number of people that stayed and retained with these agencies, which we know the area, we know the people. I mean, it's a really good thing to keep local people here. And it also, it's not a revolving door. You train them, they leave. You train them, they leave. Hopefully they'll be trained here and stay here. I appreciate the opportunity to work with Supervisor Humphrey and to get this moving ahead. If you have any other questions, be glad to answer.
Do you have anything to add to that?
I don't.
Okay, Supervisor Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, what's the chances of us having an academy? Or is it good? Do we have a date? What are we looking at?
This is our biggest hurdle. I've been working with Arizona Post, which is, all of you know, is Arizona Police Officer Standards and Training. They have to approve our academy. I have a representative that I stay in contact with. And in order to get our first inspection towards getting the academy certified, this is our last hurdle, is this gun range. I have all the updated lesson plans. We have an agreement with Miami School District to use their wrestling room and their track and field for all the physical fitness and the defensive tactics. We have a lot of the instructors through Globe Police Department, Payson Police Department, and Gila County Sheriff's Office to provide us with the instructors for the training. I've had other people come forward that are experts in their field that are willing to come in and also provide instruction at the police academy.
Okay, so we go through these steps, then I guess what I'm hearing you say is they've already kind of looked at your range or looked at the gun range, and this is kind of what it's going to take to.
I had two Arizona Post representatives come and look at both the Globe Police Range and the Globe Miami Range. The City of Globe Police Range improvement list was quite extensive, and it's also on leased Forest Service land, and I'm sure you've dealt with that before. So the list for the Globe Miami Range was short, like 3 or 4 items. We're going to upgrade the electrical for the night shoots. We're going to put a 4-strand barbed wire fence to keep cattle out of the pistol range, and then we have the 8-foot by 200 some odd feet berm to separate the rifle and the pistol range. And that was the major requirements.
Okay.
The college has already purchased a flagpole for a range flag. That was the other requirement.
And so the Globe, and pardon me, but Globe Miami Range is open to everybody, right?
Yes.
And so
it's a membership range. You have to be an NRA member, plus you have to be a member of the Globe Miami Gun Club. But we have partnered with the Globe Miami Gun Club to have the police academy training there.
So nobody can just walk in off the street and shoot there.
Not while we're doing our training, no.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And I think it was 10 or 12 days of night shoots.
Of the night shoots.
And we're gonna notify the people in the local area. That's because that land sits on BHP and FMI property. It's leased from them. And that was one of the agreements we had, is we're gonna take probably a member of one of the representatives from the mines and myself and probably Brent, who's the vice president.
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna go out and talk to the local neighbors and explain to them what's going on, and that there will be several nights where they're doing the night shoots, which is required by Arizona Post.
So one of the things that Supervisor Humphrey brought up was our local 4-H club that's getting into the shooting and stuff like that.
Yes,
Now, are they a part of this range?
yes,
Okay, all right. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kennard. Sounds like a good deal. So with that, I will entertain a motion that needs to include the benefit of the public comment.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve Economic Development Grant number 112123 with the Globe Miami Gun Club Incorporated as presented, and the Board of Supervisors has found it to be a benefit of the public.
And I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next item is 3E, information discussion action to approve economic development agreement number 113023 between Gila County and Love Where You Live in the amount of $250 for the Doctoberfest 2023 to provide for the upkeep of parks and support of local clubs, which the board has determined to be for the benefit of the public. Supervisor Humphrey.
Yeah, this was one that came before earlier, and I asked to table it and set it aside because the way it was written, it was not for the benefit of the parks as to which I thought it was. If you remember, I stated that in the meeting, and so the way it was presented, it was not what it was actually for. And so we redid it and came before the board with this now. that it is for the benefit of the dog parks in the local area. And so that's my 2 cents worth, and I don't have anyone here to speak on that today, because I didn't think it was necessary, because I do believe it's for the benefit to the public that have so many animals and use the dog parks in the area.
Thank you, Supervisor Klein.
Supervisor Humphrey, how many dog parks do we have in Globe?
There's like 5, I think. I'm not sure right off the top, but there's several different walk paths for dogs.
And so the $250 you're just gonna break up between the parks is what you're
Yeah.
thinking about?
Yeah, it's for the benefit of the dog parks.
Okay.
Okay. I have no questions, so with that, I'll entertain a motion that must include the benefit of the public comment.
Okay, so, Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve the Economic Development Agreement number 113023 with Love Where You Live as presented, and which has been determined to be for the benefit of the public.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, motion second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Item F, information, discussion, action to approve each board member's present representation on various boards, committees, and organizations for 2024. James, you have this one?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. If I might take a moment, every calendar year we go through and formally adopt or accept the committees and organizations that each of you as members of the Board of Supervisors represent the Board of Supervisors on. And if I could read those different organizations in the proposed representation. Supervisor Humphrey, Correctional Officers Retirement Plan Corp. Local Board on Sheriff's Office Detention Officers and Non-Uniformed Officers. Gila County Local Emergency Planning Committee. Central Arizona Government's Regional Council. Gila County Community College Allied Health Care Advisory Committee. Supervisor Woody Klein, Corp. Local Board for Sheriff's Office Dispatchers. Gila County Board of Health. San Carlos Apache Tribe Partnership Steering Committee. Eastern Arizona Counties Organization. And the Coalition of Arizona New Mexico Counties. Chairman Steve Christensen, County Supervisors Association Legislative Policy Committee, Public Safety Personnel Retirement System Local Board, and the Gila County Provisional Community College Advisory Board. These are the proposed committees and boards for each of you. Be open for discussion or recommendations that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Menlove. Supervisor Humphrey.
I'm good with where I'm at. I don't care to change or get rid of any of them.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Klein.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm good.
Okay, I am as well, but should my list also include a board member of the CSA, which I'm on the legislative policy and the representative to the board. Is that something that should be included?
Mr. Chairman, supervisors, all 3 of you are members of the executive board of the County Supervisors Association. So we could include that for all 3 of you, but it is something that each of you are on. That's why it's not included, because it's not a specific
Okay,
one.
thanks for that clarification. Yeah. Okay, with that, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve each board member's representation on various boards, committees, and organizations for 2024 as agreed to by each board member.
And Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, on to 3G, information, discussion, action to authorize the advertisement of request for qualifications number 120423, professional consulting firms specializing in solid waste Operations. We have Homero with us.
Chairman, board members, thank you very much. Melanie would be here, but she wanted to spend one more day with her mom, and so took a vacation day today. I will present for her. This board item is all about process improvement. We mentioned we would do something like this at the work session that we provided on landfills. And that is to seek out a third-party expert on landfills. And we had looked at a model that was used elsewhere where some folks provided this exact service to other landfill operations. And we kind of copied the scope of work. It's like a 4-page scope of work with a lot of detail, because we used the work that somebody else had done. And we saw the results of that scope of work, and so we'd like to pursue the same thing. And this is what this request for qualifications is about. It's for the Recycling and Landfill Management Division to seek a qualified professional consulting firm to provide a high-level review of the Gila County landfills. And we're asking the board to approve this RFQ for this purpose of to pursue, to put an advertisement out to look for a qualified candidate that can do this. And there are various firms that can do this, okay? They specialize in this. They actually have libraries of video training that they offer as part of the service that they provide, that our folks can get online and look at the training on how to operate a landfill, what are the safety, operate the equipment, and things like that. When we look, the type of firm that we're looking for is somebody that can come in and talk about the safety operation, about our policies, about the equipment operation, about how best to fill the landfill, how to take advantage of every last square cubic foot of airspace, all these kind of things. It's the entire ball of wax of operating a landfill. And to come back with a recommendation that says, this is what we think you can improve. These are things you ought to be doing. This is a policy, you ought to change this policy. And we would bring this gap analysis or this documented response from them back and share it with the board, and we'll take advantage of the things that we can take advantage and learn from them. And you know, of the many operations that we have, the landfill, we've seen people come and go, and Melanie's here. She has extensive experience in landfill and recycling. But our supervisors are fairly new. They're less than 1 year of seniority. One of them has just several months of the folks that run the landfills, okay? The other one has about a years of experience, and they're gaining experience. They become a supervisor of the landfill with Gila County. It's not that we hired them as having that supervisory skill. So we're training them. And I think of the operations that are in public works, this is a great concept to pursue something like this so that we can learn from others and move this process improvement a little quicker than we would otherwise. Yes, you could say we could learn to do these things over time. We just don't have that luxury, I don't think. And so we'd like to ask for the board to approve the advertisement for the request for qualifications, number 120423, professional consulting firm specializing in solid waste operations. And with that, I'll take any questions, please.
Thank you, Homero. Supervisor Humphrey.
I think this is a good deal. You know, with all the problems that we had in closing the landfill and things that were costly to us because they weren't done correctly, and I'm not, you know, blaming anybody, but education is very important. And like you say, we can learn to do things, but we can't learn to do things without a teacher. And so, you know, with us looking at, you know, at expanding another landfill and trying to get as much use as we can out of the one we have, and even perhaps, you know, get more into recycling and stuff, I think it would be great too. I think it would be money well spent in finding someone to help us do our landfills better than they have been done in the past. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And Supervisor Klein.
Yeah, thanks, Homero, for looking into this, and this could provide us a little help with one in Payson as well up there. I think there's a chance we could get it extended a little before we have to tie in there and have a new landfill if we did something like this.
Yes, this would be for both landfills, and the training would take place at both landfills. And both the landfill that we have here, the sequencing of how we best utilize the existing landfill as well as best utilize the remaining space at the landfill in Buckhead Mesa. Those were items that are in the scope of work for them to provide for us.
So there's a good chance the money we put into this pay for itself.
Yes, the scope of work that we saw was targeted something less than $50,000. And we're not making a decision ahead of time or anything like that, but we think that the cost will be in that range, and I believe that the benefits would far exceed that cost.
Yeah. Thank you, Homero.
Yes, thank you, Homero, and thank Melanie. I think this is exactly the right direction to go. And I'd be very interested to see what that all looks like, what the costs will be, and how we can improve what we're doing, make things smarter, better. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to authorize the advertisement of request for qualifications number 120423.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Homero. And I want to make a comment, okay, before we go to the next item. I want to praise you and Melanie and the landfill department. The Saturday before Christmas, I went out to the landfill at Buckhead Mesa. It was drizzly and rainy, and there was no one, no customers were coming, you know. So I got out there, and when I drove up, the personnel that were working there, our employees, were outside raking trash up around the fences and around the little hut there, and they were cleaning things in the rain because they're self-motivated. And I was very impressed by that, when they had every excuse in the world to just huddle inside and keep warm. I want you to share that with Melanie.
Thank you very much, and I will.
Okay.
I'm very pleased with the landfill staff. They are trying to do the very best that they can, and I'm happy to hear that shows, and we'll continue to behave in that way.
Thank you, Homero. Item 3H, information, discussion, action to adopt resolution number 24-01-02, accepting the quit-claim deed for Ike Clark Parkway in Young, Arizona, establishing the road as a primitive road and accepting it into the Gila County maintained roadway system as a primitive road.
Thank you. This is about designating, this board item is about designating Ike Clark Parkway in Young, Arizona as a primitive road and for the county to maintain that road. This road is approximately a quarter of a mile, and it starts at Baker Ranch Road and then runs all the way up to a Forest Service section, and it catty corners across the Tonto National Forest back into other parcels and other private properties. But what we're talking about today is that section between Baker Ranch Road and the Forest Service. It's about a quarter mile. Quitclaim deed for Ike Clark Parkway and for Baker Ranch Road were both granted to Gila County in 1983. At that time, Gila County took action to accept Baker Ranch Road into our county maintained road system, but took no action on Ike Clark Parkway. So today we're here to ask the board to accept Ike Clark Parkway as a primitive road and to accept the quitclaim deed as well. The primitive road, of course, will allow us to maintain the road several times a year. It does have a low traffic count, I would say, of 34 vehicles per day. But it's a road that could have been accepted in the past, and there's significant need for the road from the public, because it does, like I said, lead to other parcels beyond this quarter mile. And so with that, I would like to ask for the board to accept the quitclaim deed for Ike Parkway in Young, Arizona, and establish the road as a primitive road so that we can maintain it as part of our county maintained roadway system.
Thank you, Homero. Supervisor Humphrey.
Yeah, I just want to bring up the fact that primitive road is primitive road, and it's not going to be maintained once a week, because our primitive road is set to to maintain them how often, Homero? There's no set,
A couple of times a year.
yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because all of a sudden the county takes over a road and we take over a lot of roads in a lot of different categories. And I just wanted everybody to know that it's a couple times a year that it will be maintained, not once a week. That's all.
Thank you, Supervisor Klein.
I was hoping we was gonna pave it next week, you know?
Bring it,
Driveway?
bring it to the board.
Is it your driveway?
No, it's not my driveway.
Bring it to the board.
No, but what wasn't in that was that first quarter mile is pretty low maintenance type road, but it's going into area that's being pretty well developed. A lot of houses being built in there and properties being sold and things like that. So Homer, thank you for doing that.
Okay, with that, I will call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to adopt resolution number 24-01-02 as presented.
And I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you, Homero. Next item is 3I, information, discussion, action to adopt resolution number 24-01-01, authorizing the abandonment of 1,706 square feet of unneeded Pinion Drive cul-de-sac in exchange for the acquisition of 2,003 square feet of assessor's parcel number 30131-062 for a new right-of-way, and authorizing the chairman's signature on the quitclaim deed to Teresa Burkhart and Francis M. Ostman as successor co-trustees of the Lou Chabowski Living Trust. Homero.
Thank you, Chairman. So the owners of 5665 West Pinion Drive in Pine had their lot surveyed and discovered that a shed and a part of a carport were inadvertently built in a cul-de-sac adjoining the east side of their lot. At the same time, with the same survey, they discovered that Gila County was encroaching on their property as part of a roadway system, an existing road that we have, Pinion, except that it veered off the road right-of-way onto their property. And Exhibit A shows that section. The hash line shows part of the road where it exists today, and the quitclaim that we're asking from them in exchange for Exhibit B. The next one up. Exhibit B would show part of the cul-de-sac that is really not used today. It's not used today, and it's not going to be used in the future. I think there we go. Hasn't been used, will not be used. There's no need for that cul-de-sac, and so we're exchanging the encroachment area of Pinion Road for this half quarter circle of the cul-de-sac, which is about the same square footages of property, one for the other, so that we can continue to maintain Pinion Road where it's at without having to do any new construction or anything like that, and allowing them to use that quarter of the circle for their shed and for their carport that you see on this property here. This is a benefit to Gila County. It's a benefit to the Chabowski Trust. And there's really no reason not to do this. Like I mentioned, the cul-de-sac is not used, has not been utilized, and will not be utilized. It's in an area where there was no need to have a cul-de-sac. And so this benefits everybody without causing any harm to anyone else. And so with that, I'd like to ask the board to adopt resolution number 2401-01, authorizing the abandonment of 1,706 square feet of unneeded Pinion Drive cul-de-sac in exchange for the acquisition of 2,003 square feet of assessor parcel number 301-31062 for the new right-of-way, and authorizing the chairman's signature on the quitclaim deed to Teresa Burkhart and Francis M. Ostman as successor co-trustees of the Lou Chabowski Living Trust.
Thank you, Homero. Supervisor Humphrey.
Yeah, I think it's great that we clear up a lot of these things, and it still looks like there's room for someone to turn around at the end of that road if needed. So, no, thank you very much for cleaning up some of these loose ends. Appreciate it.
Supervisor Klein.
Thank you, Homero.
Yes, thank you, Homero. Tidy things up. With that, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to adopt resolution number 240101 as presented.
I'll second that.
And with those motions, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. So, item 3J, information, discussion, action to authorize the advertisement or invitation for bids number 113023 to purchase 13 new general fund vehicles as outlined in the solicitation. Homero.
So every year, thank you, Chairman, every year we look at our vehicle list of vehicles and we ask ourselves, how old are they, how many miles do they have, and how much does it cost to maintain? And we prioritize these lists based on those three characteristics, from the worst to the ones that are the newest. And so at the same time, we turn to our county manager and you, the board, and we determine what capital monies we have available to purchase new vehicles. And the 13 vehicles that are being presented today are in line with those two items. Capital budget that was available for this fiscal year for vehicles, and vehicles that we should be replacing. So there's 13 vehicles at the bottom that we take and we say these are the oldest and the worst, and we're gonna move them out and we bring in new vehicles. And there is a common sense way of taking a new vehicle and asking yourself, where should this new vehicle go to? Does it go to, I'm going to use the landfill operation. Does it go to the landfill operation where a vehicle may just be used in the landfill and it doesn't have to go to Phoenix every week or every other week? Or it's only being used in the landfill. Should the landfill get a new vehicle? The answer, I think, is obviously no. The landfill is okay using a vehicle that's 3 or 4 years old. Okay, and so we use this, we call it the trickle-down method of taking the newest vehicle and putting it where we think it belongs, and then taking the slightly older vehicles. It can be something like 2 or 3 years. We've been using that with different departments, where they don't get they don't get necessarily a new vehicle. They get a vehicle that's 2 or 3 years, and we try to put the new vehicles as much as we can into fleet, and that's what this board item tries to explain. That we're buying 13 new vehicles and we're going to make a decision where best to put them. The board item actually states where we think today these 13 vehicles will go. But I'm going to say that it didn't come from me, the clever idea that was put into how we purchase this vehicle is we're going to go out and request for bids to the open public, okay? To all the dealers that may want to bid on these vehicles. It's going to be a public bid. They can come back and we can pick and choose the cars from different dealers depending on convenience and cost. Okay, we want them now. We don't want them 18 months from now. Okay, we want those vehicles now, and so we're going to get them from probably the ones that are lowest cost that are available within a reasonable amount of time. And based on when we get those vehicles, then we will make a final decision as to how we distribute the vehicles. But in the board item, there is for every vehicle, we're showing where that vehicle goes. And we just reserve I'm going to say the common sense approach of making that decision at a future point in time as a final decision. So with that, without having to read how we exchange all these vehicles, they're here on the board item. I would like to ask the board to approve this invitation for bids number 113023 for 13 various models of new vehicles. And with that, I'll accept any questions.
Thank you, Homero. Supervisor Humphrey.
Yeah, just two questions. So, so the ones that, okay, if we're gonna get 13, that means we're gonna be getting rid of about 13 or thereabouts. And so those will be either trade-ins or auctioned off?
Very good question, thank you. Not only are we getting rid of 13, we're auctioning 13 plus 2 more, okay? There's folks that, we're trying to reduce the fleet size, and oftentimes somebody will say, if I get a new vehicle, I'll turn in 2. And so in this particular case, there's 15 vehicles that are gonna find their way to the auction block.
Okay, good. And I guess another question I had is I noticed that a lot of our trucks are Fords. And so with us purchasing 13 new vehicles, you said it's gonna go out public. Is that Dodge, Chevys, Chryslers, Fords, whatever?
Uh, we prefer to have Fords today.
Okay. Ask and answer.
Supervisor Klein?
Well, Merrill, thanks. So when we do these purchases on this, is this the only purchase we're gonna do on vehicles out of general fund for this year?
Unless there's a grant, right now, we've been approached that there's grant monies available for, this is not general fund, for a couple of vehicles. And they have to spend it by a certain amount of time, and so we may be coming to you next board meeting or in early February, pending approval from the county manager for 2 vehicles, like for probation, where they've got 90% of the funds, and they're looking for somebody to help them with 10% more to get. So yes, these are mostly all the general fund vehicles with a few exceptions.
Okay.
And you would see those exceptions, and we would have to pass the finance part, the budget part, as well as the county manager before we came here. This
Okay.
is mostly for all general fund vehicles, including, previously we purchased some sheriff's vehicles, and these are for the rest of the general fund vehicles.
Thank you, Homero.
Thank you, Homero. Is one of these vehicles the one we discussed for the animal control vehicle?
No, that,
Okay.
that we found a vehicle, an appropriate vehicle for animal control that had low mileage, fairly new, had poor utilization, and they're gonna get that vehicle.
I see. Thank you, Homero. With that, I will entertain.
Mr. Chairman, can I make a comment?
Sorry.
Sorry. With the state, there's a lot of money that has come in with COVID-related funding. And in some of those cases, the funding was so much that there's idle money that's sitting available at the state level. We continue to work with the state through various departments at the state to get funding for vehicles. So, and the question or comment is this it? I've had conversations in the last month of, well, we might be able to get this $250,000 that we can use for vehicles. That's COVID money that's sitting there not being used. And if it's not used, it's going to go back to the federal government. So it's kind of, as Homer indicated, that there's some flux and some flexibility that we're looking at. But for now, this is the funding, and we continue to work to get additional funds, perhaps replace these general fund dollars, that we don't have to spend all general fund dollars for these 13 vehicles, but that we can go ahead and get these on order. And it's been determined by Mr. Vela and his team that these are the ones that need to be replaced now. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that clarification. We still, everybody good? With that, I will call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to authorize the advertisement invitation for bid number 113023 as presented.
And I'll second that.
Motion and a second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Item 3K, information discussion action to authorize the advertisement for invitation for bid number 112023, the Walnut Springs Boulevard Culvert Replacement.
Mr. Chairman, Alex Kendrick, a member of our engineering staff, will provide this item for public works.
Okay, thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Board of Supervisors. Thank you, Director Villa. This is a request to advertise an invitation for bid, number 112023 for Walnut Springs Boulevard. It's the Walnut Canyon Culvert Replacement Project. Currently, there's 5 culverts that got damaged when the last floodwaters came through after a fire came through. And so this work would be to remove those existing 5 36-inch culverts and construct a new 2-barrel 10x16 concrete box culvert to match up with what ADOT has on 188. The Department of Forestry and Fire Management, DFM, is partially funding this project in the amount of $367,805.82. The remainder would be the responsibility of Gila County. The resource request from DFM is R3204509. So with the available of funding from DIFM and then the transportation excise tax revenue, Gila County should be able to fund this project, which will make a substantial impact to the community. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Alex. Supervisor Humphrey.
No questions, but thank you, because I think this has been put off for quite some time to get easements in order to be able to do this.
Correct.
And so thank you very much for your persistence in working with these easements from property owners to benefit the community. You know, it's just great because there was a lot of things of why it wasn't done and this and that. And so thank you very much for your persistence on continuing to benefit the
Thank you.
public.
Supervisor Klein.
Alex, thank you. I'm good.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. It looks like our cost might be 20,000 or so, right in that vicinity approximately. So we're getting a pretty good bang for the buck.
As of right now, that's what it's looking like, yes.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Alex. With that, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to authorize the advertisement of invitation for bids number 112023 as presented.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, motion and a second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Item 3L. Thank you, Alex. Information, discussion, action to approve intergovernmental agreement number 100923 with the Pleasant Valley Volunteer Fire District, which allows the Pleasant Valley Volunteer Fire District to purchase fuel at the Young County Road Yard Fuel Depot. Homero.
Thank you, Chairman. This item, like the next two items, are about IGAs with our communities that allow them to purchase fuel from us. In all three cases, they've had a previous IGA with the county in in the past, whether it's the immediate past or a more distant past. There has been an IGA with each of these previously. So this one is with Pleasant Valley Volunteer Fire District, and as you can imagine, they benefit from having a source of fuel that's available to them during emergencies at all times, because we would be working alongside with them in the event of an emergency. So our facility would be open to them. They would have available, the amount of fuel that would be available to them would be a sizable quantity, and it offers a great benefit to them. And so we would like to enter into an IGA with them. It would be a 5-year term on the IGA that would allow them to purchase fuel from us at our cost, plus 18 cents a gallon in addition to that. That's all spelled out in the IGA. And we recover everything that we spend plus the administrative cost that we would bear in providing the fuel to them. So with that, I would like to ask for board approval for IGA number 100923 with Pleasant Valley Volunteer Fire District, which allows the district to purchase fuel from our facility in Young.
Thank you, Homero. Supervisor Humphrey.
Yeah, I put a, thought into these because the IGAs with, as you say, the ones coming up as well, it's like, okay, they're buying fuel somewhere now. So what jeopardy are we doing to a private business whom is selling fuel? And so I kind of battle against, helping the private business owner. But, when it comes down to it, they have a lot of people to sell fuel to, and by coming up with these, the availability to the individuals and the little bit of cost benefit to them overall, I think it's beneficial to these entities for us to be able to IGA with. So thank you very much for working on this, Homer.
Thank you. Supervisor Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. From what I know, well, I can tell you there's only one other fuel source in Young, Arizona, so there's not like there's a competitive deal going on there. So they do get it, but also on their pumps, and I was sitting there trying to remember exactly what it said, but I know that they're not taking fleet cards and some other different cards at those pumps. I'm not sure really what the option is in Young for the fire department or the school as far as fuel, but well, I understand that we've been doing this now for a little while anyway, right, Homer? for the last 2, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it's been.
Supervisor Klein, yes, they've had an IGA with us
Yeah.
previously.
Yeah. So thank you for doing this, Homer.
Thank you, Homero. No questions from me. I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve intergovernmental agreement number 100923 with the Pleasant Valley Volunteer Fire Department as presented.
And I'll second that.
Motion and a second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Item 3M, information discussion action to approve an IGA number 101023 with Young Public Unified School District number 5, which allows the district to purchase fuel at the Young County Road Yard Fuel Depot. Homero.
This particular item is the IGA with Young Public Unified School District number 5. And we have been selling fuel to Young School District. A letter is on file that requested an IGA to purchase fuel. However, we couldn't find a copy of the executed IGA. So this is a little different than the first one that I talked about and the next one that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. And so we would like to make this formal IGA agreement with them active. And if you look at the very last item on your presentation, it's up on the board right now. It actually shows the fuel that we've sold to these various organizations in the last year. From 2022, I'm sorry. It was in the year of 2022. And you can see that it varies, but Pleasant Valley Fire and the Young School District were buying relatively low amount of fuel. And so if you're running the fire truck only in the Young area and you don't have that many fires, you could understand that maybe they wouldn't use that much fuel. But again, the important portion for the fire district is in the event of an emergency. And you could probably say the same thing for the school district, that if there's a significant snowfall out there and they've plowed the route for the school, but they haven't plowed the 512 road, then the source of fuel for them would be at the Gila County facility. And the school district has used, at that time, for that year, a little higher level fuel than the fire district. So we would like to put an IGA as a formal agreement with the Young School District to purchase fuel at the Young County Road Yard Fuel Depot. And with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you, Homero. Supervisor Humphrey.
No comments, thank you.
Supervisor Klein.
Yeah, I don't have anything, I guess. The one thing I would say in some of these areas is cost of fuel is really high through some of these pumps. And so there's one way of looking at this. If we're providing diesel and fuel at a cheaper rate, we're also saving taxpayer dollars. So that's the other twist to this story. Anyway, but thank you for doing this, Homero.
Thank you, Supervisor Klein. And with that, I will call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to approve intergovernmental agreement number 101023 with the Young Public Unified School District number 5 as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Last item, Homero, number 3N. Information discussion action to approve an IGA 100823 between Gila County and the Tonto Basin Fire District, which allows the district to purchase fuel from Gila County.
Thank you. Before I talk a little bit about the Tonto Basin Fire District IGA, I'd just like to mention that we recover our full cost for the fuel with these IGAs. There is a commodity price for fuels that's used in the United States, and it's published every week. And on Monday morning, we take that number, and anything that's purchased that week based on that Monday price is what they pay. Plus, they pay a delivery fee and the profit, a delivery fee which includes all costs for the vendor that sells us the fuel, and they pay the HERF tax, and then on top of that, they pay the county administrative cost of 18 cents. So I've often wanted to go to the fuel pumps and see which one's more expensive or not, but it's probably comparable. I don't think that there's a big cost savings for them to purchase from us. I think what we really offer is the dependability, reliability, and availability of that fuel at the fuel pump at all times, and especially at times of need. I think that that's what we bring to the table for these entities. I just wanted to kind of share that thought, okay? So it's IGA 100823 with Tonto Basin Fire District fuel purchases. Actually, we had an IGA with them from the year 2005, 2010, and for some reason we didn't renew that IGA. But the fire district is interested in again starting up at this agreement with Gila County. And they have 16 vehicles and pieces of equipment that use fuel at times of emergency. So again, it's a great benefit to them. And with that, I would like to ask you to approve the IGA 100823 to allow the Tonto Basin Fire District to purchase fuel from Gila County.
Thank you, Homero. Supervisor Humphrey.
No question.
Supervisor Klein.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good as well. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve intergovernmental agreement number 100823 with the Tonto Basin Fire District as presented.
And I'll second that.
Motion and a second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, Homero.
Thank you.
Item 3O, information, discussion, action to approve amendment number 1 to funding agreement number 203-24 between the Arizona Department of Housing and Gila County Community Services Department. Housing services to use low-income home energy assistant program funding and Department of Energy Weatherization Readiness Funding funding, which increases the amount of the contract by $374,487 for a total contract amount of $592,969 for the period of July 1, 23 through June 30th, 2024. And we have Kaylee.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as presented, this is a significant contract increase to continue to help with our weatherization efforts within the county. It's important to note that this will increase our requirement of completed units to 30, which means we will be helping at least 30 homes and their occupants within Gila County with a contract total of nearly $600,000 and no match requirement from the county.
Okay, thank you, Kaylee. Supervisor Humphrey.
Yes. Not all of this work needs to be BPI certified? Or does all of this work need to be BPI certified?
I believe this all has to be certified with weatherization.
Okay. But some of the funding you get does not require BPI certification?
Correct.
Okay, and I said I'd ask you last time, this time, do you have some local contractors signed up for the work that does not need to be BPI certified? That's okay.
Sorry.
Don't worry about it. We can talk about it later, okay. Because if you don't have local contractors then I would like to help you get some on the list that can use funding.
Chairman, members of the board, so that funding would arise under a different contract, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we could chat about that at the time.
That's what I said. That's why I backed off.
Okay, perfect.
Is that all, Supervisor?
Thank you.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you, Kaylee. Supervisor Klein.
Good job, Kaylee.
Thank you, sir.
That's it.
Yeah, thank you, Kaylee. So with that, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to approve amendment number 1 to funding agreement number 203-24 with the Arizona Department of Housing as presented.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, Kaylee. And I understand that we just recently combined the community services and health department back together again. That's good. Okay. Item 3P.
Morning.
Morning,
We're
Randy.
getting to the end here, so it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So-
Let me read it first.
Okay?
Information, discussion, action to approve contract agreement number 082223 with Iron Mountain Information Management LLC in the amount of $33,000 for pack, prep, and destruction services for an estimated 1,029 cartons, as a small part of the process was not covered under previously approved Arizona state contract CTRO 633770. Randy.
Morning. Again, we've talked about this prior, that when we came for all the digitizing and we had bid it all at one time, there were certain items that were not actually covered under the state contract, and that's what these items are. Transportation to come pick them up, take to them, destroying them, and the 1,029 cartons is kind of making it seem small. It's about 2 million pieces of paper that we're getting digitized and put into this. So this 33,000 is the amount. It's all out of the ARPA money. It was originally out of the original contract. This is just the part that was not covered under the state contract. So I'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Randy. Supervisor Humphrey.
I have no questions, Randy.
Supervisor Klein.
I'm good, Randy, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Randy. With that, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve contract agreement number 082223 with Iron Mountain Information Management LLC as presented.
And I'll second that.
Motion and a second to approve. Those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 3Q, information and discussion action to review all bids submitted for request for proposals number 092723, consulting services, opioid abatement, award a contract to the lowest, most responsive, responsible, and qualified bidder, and authorize the chairman's signature on the award contract for the winning bidder. Josh Beck.
Good morning, Chairman,
Good morning.
members of the board. So we came to you about 2 months ago and we put this out. This is using the opioid settlement money that we're receiving. Part of the reason for this is right now we have a lot of other opioid grants where we're doing prevention work around opioids in the health department, and eventually you get to the point where it's hard not to kind of commingle the funds with all the things that we're already doing. So we thought one of the interesting things to do would be to take that list of deliverables that the state attorney general's office allows us to do for the opioid settlement and put it out to the public to see what kinds of ideas that they would come up with, which would be different than the expertise that we have in the department and things that we would do. Sadly, I didn't get as many bids as I wanted to receive, but the bid that we did receive is a strong bid. They're selected a good third of the 27-page list as deliverables that they want to do. Some things that are in areas that are outside of our scope of work as a health department. I'm working on some the MAT training, the medical assessment treatments, where they combinations of behavioral therapy and medications to help people get through their opioid or those type of crises. They have a lot of work for, if you remember during COVID, we had a contract for wraparound services, a lot with schools, where we worked with teachers and students in schools to try to get them the help that they needed so they could stay home if they had COVID. Well, this group has kind of an idea like that, sort of, with opioids, where a lot of the problem with people that are having issues is getting away from your family and having the money to get to a treatment place or to cover some of the bills while you're doing treatment or some of these things. So they have kind of a their own type of wraparound service that they wrote into this contract to help work towards getting these people into the different treatment or services they need. One of the things they're doing is they're working with a dashboard that we're creating right now that works with all the death certificate data and our communicable disease database that we have for the state. And so we have a really good idea of exactly how many opioid-related deaths and suicides and all these kind of things we have. And we're really pushed in this contract. I made sure, if you look through there, there's a lot of evaluation material in there to say, we want to really make sure. When I met with the other health officers in the Attorney General's office, it was very important to them, the people that really fought for this money, that we really ultimately make some kind of difference in the big numbers, how many fatalities there were. So one of the things we really did when we went out to contract for this was to make sure we're looking to make a difference. So there's a lot of data that goes behind this, and I've spoken with the group with Guild Health Consulting about this, and that our expectation for this funding goes for the opioid settlement funding goes for 18 years, and they asked what are we looking for, and so my agreement was to them the same as the state said to us, is we're looking to make a difference in those numbers. So that's where we're at. That's what they've brought forward to us. It really is a good package. Mr. O'Driscoll and I know two of the members of the group that put this together, both worked on the opioid and the prevention side with the Arizona Department of Health Services. Both really smart people, so we feel pretty good about this bid.
Thank you, Josh. Supervisor Humphrey.
No questions.
Supervisor Klein.
Thank you, Josh.
Yes, thank you, Josh. With that, I'll call for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to award a contract to Guild Health Group in the amount of $389,687.96 for the project period through June 30th, 25 to satisfy the deliverable of request for proposals number 092723.
I'll second that, Mr.
We
Chair.
have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you, Josh. Next item is item 4. It's the consent agenda item. Does anyone, one of the supervisors request to take one of those items or more off of the consent agenda? Supervisor Humphrey.
I wish to take none off.
Supervisor Klein.
I'm good.
I have a question, a point of process. I would like for Jessica, if she's the most appropriate, to explain item 4A, as we did have a session on that. Either Jessica or whoever's appropriate to say how we got to this item and got past the problem that we were looking at.
Yes, you would need to make the motion to remove that item from the consent agenda.
Okay, I'll call for a motion to remove consent agenda item 4A from the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion.
Okay? And I will second. I have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so let's address that item specifically now, please.
Certainly. So members, supervisors, so I spoke to other deputy attorneys from other counties, and they do go through the process without forming a IGA. Now, Santa Cruz does have a formal IGA. They are not being charged the 26 overhead %. Not sure why. We could dig into that if you choose. However, the other counties are moving forward with the appropriation without that. They are going through the authority of ARS 3-124. This is because the County Agriculture Extension Board, they were the ones to determine the appropriation. They approved it. Per that statute, it now comes before the board. You can simply make the appropriation without forming the IGA.
Okay, so you feel comfortable with that now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I'll call for a motion to approve what was previously consent agenda item 4A.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve that item. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. And with that, then I will call for a motion to approve consent agenda items 4B through 4M.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve consent agenda items 4B through 4M.
And I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And now, item 5, call to the public. Is there anyone present in Globe today that wishes to address the board? Is there anyone in Payson that wishes to address the board?
No, sir.
And thank you. And Cassandra? No? Okay. So then we'll move on. At this time, we will allow the Board of Supervisors, County Manager, to have a brief summary of current events. So I'll turn it over to Manager Menlove.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for a moment. Just wanted to make you aware or remind you that as of yesterday, the Board of Supervisors, in adopting the fiscal year 23-24 budget, there was an amount of 1.6% that was included in departmental office budgets to impact employee salary information, or the amount that people are paid. So 1.6% included in each department and in each office. That was effective yesterday, so those are going into effect. Checked with Human Resources, and they are working through that process, taking a look at the information that's presented. I've received no word, no information that there's any issues, any challenges, any problems with the implementation of that. So we fully expect that it'll be, let's see, first full pay period starting on the 1st, so it's about the 17th, 18th that employee their paychecks will be impacted and they should get a raise. And it's based on the elected official or department director for that applicable office or department. If there's any comments, I would be glad to meet with you and discuss separately. Same will be true for something for the Board of Supervisors offices and those that work in the board office.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
James. Supervisor Humphrey.
Oh, yeah, I attended the Payson Tea Party Christmas dinner, held a Gila community meeting, held a Roosevelt community meeting, was on KQSS, at 5:30 on the 11th. I'll hold a Tonto Basin community meeting this evening. I'll be a guest speaker at Globe Rotary Luncheon tomorrow. We'll hold a Roosevelt community meeting on the 8th. And we'll be on KQSS again on the 8th at 5:30 p.m. And I just want to thank very much Chief Walters with the City of Globe, Freeport McMoran, and my constituent funds for going towards the Law Enforcement Training Academy. I think it's going to be great for the area. I was really surprised that none of the other law enforcement agencies wanted to pitch in, but I think those very much that did.
Thank you. Supervisor Klein.
I don't have anything. I took 2 weeks and went to the woods. It was really good. So if we could do that for the rest of the month, that'd even be better. But thank you.
Well, I've been busy, but I don't have a litany of things to talk about. What I would like to do, though, is say that one of our former, I just received information that one of our former supervisors, Cruz Salas, passed away December 31st. He served on the board from 1993 to 2004, and he passed at age 87. So before we dismiss today and adjourn, I would like for us all to stand and just have just a moment of meditation in his honor. Thank you very much. We're adjourned. I've met him. Have you ever met him? My dad worked with him.